Meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission is appointed by the Board of Selectmen in the town of Milton, and our duties and responsibilities are to enforce the Wetlands Protection Act and the regulations of the town of Milton bylaw. As a matter of formality, we always introduce ourselves.
Judith Darrell Kemp.
My name's John Kiernan.
Michael Blute.
Arthur Doyle.
Craig McNaught.
Kathy Bowen.
First on the agenda is Notice of Intent, Neponset River Stormwater Improvement. That's DOT. DOT here?
Yes.
All right, so we have a recorder here, and I'd ask you to introduce yourself and tell us what the improvement process that you are proposing is all about.
Okay, sure, thank you. Just gonna... What was it? Went to the exam.
They sent a copy, but I need they discontinued.
Green slips for,
Notifying about it.
they're exempt, DOT is exempt.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Yeah,
yep.
sorry.
That's all right,
Sorry.
that's all right.
And do you have
Let me send
the
it.
AECOM check, original check? I could
I
get,
don't, I'm sorry.
do you have it here? Or-
No.
Alright, we definitely need that back.
Oh, get it.
Okay, alright, no worries.
Yeah,
Okay, alright,
Yeah.
thanks. Alright.
Now, could you introduce yourself first? And then secondly, if you're going to stand at the board, can you use that mic? You can actually detach that and take it with you,
Okay,
because you're also being recorded by the Milton Access TV.
hold a couple things here, so.
Sure.
Thanks. Thanks. Yep, my name is Tom Touche. I'm a wetland scientist with AECOM in Wakefield, Massachusetts. And we're here tonight on behalf of Mass DOT. And this particular project is part of the Mass DOT Impaired Stormwaters Project, stormwater program, which is a program to basically retrofit existing stormwater systems located throughout the state, as well as install new stormwater BMPs for impaired waters that have been identified. So I'll...
Move this down while I do you are.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So this particular project is composed of 5 different BMP locations. Site A, which is actually located in the city of Boston on the other side of the Neponset River. And then 3 sites in Milton, so site C, E, and D. Out of the 3 sites located in Milton, only one of them is actually located within an area subject to jurisdiction under the Wetlands Protection Act, which is Site C. So that's the subject of the notice of intent that we had submitted. So Site C is located within the 100-foot buffer zone to a BVW that was flagged and shown here on the map as W6. And I'm also here with our civil engineer, Yan Zhang, and he's just going to explain a little bit about the specific design for Site C. So I'll just flip that map. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Just for the record, would you introduce yourself as well?
Sure. My name is Yan Zhang. I'm the civil engineer and design engineer for this particular site. I'm from AECOM. I just want to give you a little bit the overview. I'll go back to this just a little bit. As Tom pointed out, Site C is within the buffer zone of the environmental impact areas. And
Let's give a little idea of where it is better. So it's next to the expressway, is that it, as you, on
this
93?
This is I-93, and that's the northbound. And this is the infield area of I-93. I think this is about the Granite Avenue, so this
Yes.
is exit 11A area.
Okay.
So you can see, I think this is the on-ramp from Granite Avenue to the northbound.
Okay.
I-93, I think this is the off-ramp
Right.
from I-93 towards Granite Avenue.
Okay.
So showing here, basically, this section of the Neponset River is considered impaired. And the stormwater runoff from approximately 2.1 acres of the pavement of I-93 right now discharges directly into Neponset River, causing the impairment. So this is a retrofit project. Basically, DOT is trying to retrofit a BMP within the areas as much as they can to treat the first flush of stormwater That's improved the water quality. So going to the design, this.
Hey, can you
ahead.
go back for just a minute? About a month ago, we issued an emergency certification for a breakout, and it was DOT property. Do you know what I'm talking about, Tom?
I don't think so.
I think it's on, it's near D and E. Kathy, do you know where it is? Is it across the street?
From the, what's that called there?
I think there's like.
The
D,
Heritage Hall?
isn't-
Heritage Hall.
Yeah, I
On the
think,
golf course side.
oh, on the golf course.
No, I don't think it's the golf course. It's opposite the golf course.
With the
Isn't it where they store the salt?
Yeah, where they store
So
the
it's
salt.
further down. You can't see it on the map.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, it
This
may
is the
be-
DOT depot, just to give you a little orientation right here. That's
And that's where I believe that took place. There was some kind of a breakout, and there was an emergency response. I think Clean Harbors came in to take care of it. So obviously, this is not part of that
No,
problem.
this is not part of it.
It's close to it, though. So
Really?
can you just do a little bit of research and get back to Kathy and tell us if there's any connection here? Because I don't know if it was the salt or the whatever chemicals they used for the highway.
Really?
But there was some concern, and Clean Harbors came in, and probably 6 weeks ago,
That was a car accident.
was it a car accident?
Yeah,
And a
they
spill
took
of,
the telephone poles down, remember?
oh, it was the PCBs from the transformer.
Right.
Oh, okay, all right,
Okay.
I got it, thank you.
You got it? Okay,
Right.
good. So I think the orange line here shows kind of the extent of the what we call the work limit. But basically, this proposed BMP will involve a infiltration basin. What we do is that we're gonna, as I mentioned, there's a lot of pavement, stormwater pavement, runoff from the pavement kind of currently goes this way into Neponset River, and the design will have part of the water, stormwater runoff, namely here is the water quality portion, the first flush or the dirtiest portion of the runoff kind of being diverted into this area, and then it's going to be undergone some treatment here through infiltration, and the mechanism is based on research, will remove about 85% of the common pollutants in that first flush, and then so that's basically the basin area. The design also includes some maintenance. This is the Granite Avenue, so there's a chain link fence right here. So this little gravel road will be kind of configured so that the maintenance vehicles will be able to come in and periodically clean up the area, the basin. That's basically, to a nutshell, for our design right here. So if you have any questions, let me know.
After the 85% removal in the first flush, is there a secondary cleansing mechanism as well, or does it discharge at 15%?
We only divert the water quality volume over to this basin for treatment. The regular water, anything above that, will be continuing flowing through the original system, discharged.
How does that work?
It's a diversion pipe, so we have a manhole,
Yep.
and we set our diversion pipe at a lower invert, and then we use an orifice plate to restrict the flow. Basically, the first flush will come down and then go in a way,
Yep.
but when water comes over, it's gonna continue to go its original way.
But it will continue to flow through the orifice.
Part of it, yeah, we did run our model here to make sure that the water, whatever coming over here will be fully restrained within the basin. It's not going to go over bank. We have the model printout in the NOI document, stormwater report.
And what percentage of the water, the discharged water, do you anticipate you can capture in the basin? I mean, this is an improvement, so it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering how
the
much you're
design-
capturing.
Right now, for this watershed, I think the definition is a 0.5 inch of the surface area. That's how the volume is calculated. And by our design, I think we had it in our report, about 93% of the first flush will be diverted over for treatment. So
So 95% of the total tributary area.
95% of the first flush of the
First flush
0.5
of that
inch. Yeah,
tributary.
exactly.
And that's all the runoff from the 93?
No, that's just the first flush, which is the water quality volume, or that's typically the dirtiest amount of water, stormwater runoff, that will be diverted over for treatment.
But where is the stormwater coming from?
from precipitation running onto the pavements.
That's what I just asked.
I'm sorry.
Oh, in terms of
Coming runoff from
Oh,
the-
geographically, you're talking about the contributing drainage area?
Yeah.
Okay. It's about 2.13 or so acre of pavement on 93. I think it's kind of approximately from, maybe wrong, maybe from here all the way to here. We have a figure, I can refer you to figure 1 of the stormwater report, which has the delineation polygon on it. So it's I think it's approximately right here to approximately right here.
What does DOT use for snow melt? What chemicals do they use for snow melt?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure in that area.
But is there any, that's not something that's getting screened out in the basin, or is it?
It must be.
Why?
No,
Not
it
sure.
isn't.
But it
It
would
isn't,
be
because this is
included.
it's first flush. This is only dealing with 85% of the first flush. So that gets applied and that melts over time, and only a small portion of whatever that is ends up going through the orifice and coming down into this system.
It's for all seasons, not only the winter
Right.
season dealing with the snow or salts that apply, but also for.
But basically, the
But how is
salt
it-
is going into the deposit.
But how is it treated in the basin once it gets
Through
there?
infiltration, we tested the soil to make sure it's actually infiltrating. And then we calculate the recharge time to make sure it has enough time to achieve that, infiltration.
So it's leaching into the actual ground.
It's leaching, yes, downward, yes.
But there are plantings as well, right?
There will be-
There are plantings that are being installed as well to
Yes.
help filter.
Correct.
So it's similar to what, with the playing fields over by
Yeah, like a rain garden.
Houghton's Pond.
Houghton's Pond,
Yeah.
the whole wash off from that. So in this system, basically, we're slowing down this 85% slow, we're running it through a pipe, and we're gonna dump it in the retention, slow it down, let that go, and then everything else continues going on.
I'm sorry, say it again.
The system here, we're grabbing that 85%.
Right.
Based on the size of the.
Based on the infiltration mechanism to remove the pollutants.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you have to maintain it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Questions?
How deep will the pollutants go within the existing soil?
Ideally, it should be.
I mean, you're gonna create this basin.
Yes.
And you're gonna put polluted water in it.
Yeah.
And by your description it's gonna leach into the ground.
Right, but it's going to be
How are
basic.
we controlling forever the amount of pollutants that leach further into the ground?
They're
Are we
basic.
just concentrating the pollutants in that one basin area? Are we gonna do, is there a periodic schedule that after 5 years, we're gonna excavate the basin and then put in fresh material?
Yes, I think there's a maintenance schedule for inspection and periodic removal of, overgrown weeds in that basin area and check the soil. If the soil is overly clogged, that would certainly affect the performance of the infiltration.
Hey, Tex.
Around here someplace.
It's underneath your folder. The folder.
Visiting
Stuck in
consultant
Folsom
from
Prison.
Arkansas.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'll go back to Folsom Prison.
Yeah, there's a maintenance schedule there. That's why I think you need to go there and then clean up the weeds, overgrown, and you need to check the soil to make sure it's not overly, clogged. If it's overly
a
clogged, you need to remove the material, replace the material. You need to do those type of things.
Okay.
That's a different question. That's a different answer. Because if the chemical pollutants go down and seep into the earth,
Yep.
you're talking about clogging the system, the filtering system. He's talking about what happens to you're now concentrating all of the pollutants and contaminants in an area that's.
All the de-icing chemicals
Right.
are now gonna be concentrated in this one pond.
And where is the actual basin?
It's gonna be right here. So this is right here.
So where did this wetlands That's what
The
I'm having a
wetlands
hard
is
time seeing.
right here.
Yeah, it's like a Phragmites wetland, which is W6, right in this area here.
The green line?
Yep. Yeah, so the green line represents the upgrading boundary between the wetland itself and the BMP area.
So how can we monitor the amount of pollutants that are 5 feet down in the soil?
Ideally, the pollutants are going to be absorbed by, onto the surfaces of the media underneath. I mean, it's basically, they're not going to go in and pollute in the groundwater. I mean, the theory is that they are absorbed to the infiltrating media, and through absorption, they should be attached to those media particles.
Well, what's the media that's absorbed?
It's say sand or some infiltrating media. They're just supposed to, absorb those chemicals, those pollutants. Think about it. I mean, if you don't treat it this way, the pollutants from the runoff, they're going to go to the river, go to the receiving water there without any treatment. Right now, they're just basically those fine chemicals. They're going to be absorbed onto this material.
I think we understand that, but is this a system that's been in place for a long time in other locations, this idea of having the basin to absorb? Or is this something new that's being tried out?
No, this is a technology that is, I think it's widely used for water quality treatment, and obviously for DOT, this is a retrofitting project. That's why, I mean, we're doing as much as we can, because typically when we say retrofitting projects, they are, you're restricted by the settings of the
Sure.
roadways, you're
Sure.
restricted by the availability of land, but if you're talking about a new project, typically we're required to provide these type of water quality treatment to the maximum extent you need to. So, go ahead.
In terms of the plantings to help break down the contaminants, can you talk for a minute about, because I think that's what Craig is asking, is
Right.
are the contaminants going to contaminate the soil and therefore they're going to be there and inert, and basically they're just going to build up over time? It was my understanding that the use of plantings in that kind of a situation, they effectively they absorb the contaminants and they help break that whole system down, so that over time the plants effectively destroy the contaminants and filter
Okay.
the system. Can you talk, is that correct? And can you?
I think I misunderstood you a little bit when I answered yes to your question about the plannings, because
Yes.
I thought the plannings were meaning some kind of landscape planning. So really, in this case, I think the material that we tested, I think we're not going to put any planning in there. When you say planning, you're talking about some other BMPs, such as like a bioretention
Yes, exactly.
treatment. No, this is not one of those. This is entirely through infiltration, and the pollutants in the stormwater runoff will be absorbed onto those media, and then in some cases, some BMPs, like infiltrating BMPs, if you find out that the soil are not suitable for this type of pollutant removal, you may introduce, you see people introduce additional material, like mulches and something like that to help. Same thing, through absorption or anything, some kind of a chemical reaction sometimes to help remove those chemicals. But this one, we tested the soil. We think the soil would be pretty functional to remove those pollutants. We also tested the groundwater table. They're low enough so that the pollutants will be fully removed before any discharge reaching the groundwater.
When you say removed, do you mean captured and not modified in any way, or do you mean destroyed?
They are not destroyed. I think they're captured onto the media.
Yep.
Over time, there may be some biodegradation happening.
Yep.
Over time, I mean, I'm sure they'll, yes.
Okay, so back to Craig's original question, if they're not being destroyed, and it sounds like the maintenance plan that you proposed is about filtration, not about removal of the contaminants. The contaminants are going to build up over time until they're very saturated. What is the plan for removal of those contaminants? And if there isn't one, we'd like to see that as added to the maintenance plan. that the soil is evaluated based on the level of contaminants that are there to verify that they're not migrating down to the the water table that you mentioned was low. But we want to show that we're not continuing to saturate this to the point where it becomes an issue. And it doesn't sound like that's currently part of the plan.
I think the maintenance plan that we proposed at the end of the stormwater report
Yes.
is a standard practice for this type of BMPs.
Okay.
Obviously, yeah, we didn't just make them up to go there every 6 months.
Yes.
You would find that these are very standard practice to make sure these type of BMPs will function in quite long period of time. But obviously, if you have the resources to have more like monitoring or you go additional yards, I mean, that's certainly, plausible as well.
Is that included in
That
the
is
plan?
yeah, the maintenance plan is included there. Those are recommended maintenance plans.
Not just filtration, but removal of contaminated material.
Yeah.
As,
Can you, is there a page you can point us to, or?
yeah, let's see if you go to the appendix, so it'd be attachment,
Appendix A of the stormwater plan
yeah, so it's right after the stormwater report checklist.
is the stormwater report.
Yep, then you get into the report, and then right after the report is the O and M attachment A.
Yeah.
Yep, so I think the plan calls for annual inspection of the sediment forebay and the basin for accumulated sediment, and then remove sediment when greater than 1 foot or obstructing the outlet pipe.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Let's see, vegetative health and soil erosion.
There are action plans for, right here.
Let's see.
It's in here. Have you guys located the, okay, there are action plans for the first 6 months after the basin's built.
Yep.
And then there's a semi-annual activities to monitor the health of the vegetation and also monitor for the erosion. And if necessary, you need to reseed and stabilize the basin. And then there are also annual inspections, and we call it to remove the sediments when like greater than 1 foot, are observed or obstructing the outlet pipe type of thing.
This proposed maintenance plan appears to only deal with erosion and accumulated sediment, does not appear to do any kind of testing for the contamination in the soil, which you've said yourself isn't being destroyed or broken down for the most part.
I believe there are some chemical, biological, degradation or reactions underneath there. That's why I think this type of maintenance plans are commonly proposed. I can do additional research to find out, how chemically or biologically these bad stuff are going to continuously breaking down or anything like that.
That would be great.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
we can do some research, but they are obviously not made up just in the state of Massachusetts. Those are pretty common practices.
No,
to
that's fine.
maintain
We
them.
just,
Yeah.
it's going back to
Sure.
Craig's point, is we've said that the contaminants are going in there, we've not shown that they're being broken down. Would introducing plants effectively produce that? I mean, could you actively add plants to this that will make it an active system?
Right now the design does call for a herbaceous seed mix in there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the rooting depth on that won't be quite as deep as other things, like shrubs or trees. But at least in that, top layer of soil, there'll be a root mat from all that vegetation, that would help at least with some of that.
Is it any kind of plant, or is it a specific type of
Yeah,
plant that
there's
does the
actually-
absorption and the breaking the chemicals down?
What's proposed is like a whole mix of plants, and it's more
Oh, I saw that.
so for like, soil stabilization and,
Well, I'm just asking, I saw the planting, but I don't know enough about it to be able to say whether or not those plants are effective in breaking down the chemicals, and that's what I'm asking. Is it any kind of plant that's effective, or is it a specific type of plant that's effective in breaking down the chemicals?
I think I can only say this. I think the main mechanism to remove pollutant here is through infiltration.
Yep.
And secondly, I think all plants
Yep.
in there will undergo some kind of biological uptake,
Yep.
and they're going to absorb some nutrients and stuff like that. So they all function to a certain degree like that. This is not this is not one of the BMPs that uses the, say, biofiltering mechanism. This is not one of those, or
Okay.
constructed wetlands. So we do introduce those seed mixes, plantings in this area, grass, those things. I'm sure they contribute removal, but that's not the major mechanism. The major mechanism here is through infiltration.
Okay.
That seed mix, I think, would just be to stabilize the soil more
Correct,
than anything
exactly,
else. It's
correct.
not- Yeah.
Well,
it's
that's a
not going to absorb
Phragmites
much.
area. Your chances
Yeah.
of getting a seed mix to take over the Phragmites is somewhere around 0. That's
Yeah.
pretty heavily.
Maybe in the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that we haven't even talked about is that you do have, is it flagged right now? I know you've got a wetland area there. Have you flagged it so we can see it?
We did.
Yeah, that was flagged.
I think the line, these lines are on the plan, they're showing those wetland flags.
Just so that you know our format, we always look at flags before we certify them. And I think we should do that. You know, the Department of Transportation is exempt from the town bylaw, but not from the Wetlands Protection Act. So I think we should take a visit and take a look. We usually do that on Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock. A lot of snow out there now.
Yes.
Am I correct that the basin is, what's the distance between the basin and the wetland line?
It should be away, so this is a scale, like that's 60 feet, so I would imagine that's a
50
outside
feet?
50 feet buffer. That's, we
Okay.
What's the construction timeline? I mean, we're not, I'm assuming, given
The
it's the
snow.
middle of winter and the snow, you're not in the middle of construction, you're trying to queue this up for the spring? So what is this is a good idea, okay, so we see this as I see this as an improvement. In terms of the timeline for construction and making sure we're not causing any problems for it proceeding, what is your timeline?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I know our DOT contact person was supposed to be here tonight, but obviously the office is closed because of the snow. But I can double check with her and see what they're planning on that.
Okay.
they've been pushing for the schedule.
I know they're definitely
Yeah,
pushing us
they're
to
pushing
try
us
to.
to get it
Okay,
done,
yeah.
so.
I actually have one other question. Are you jumping, not related to this, but some information that was in the report? In the report, it talks about the sediment of the Neponset River is currently impaired with I can't even pronounce it, enterococus, fecal coliform, dissolved oxygen, and PCBs. Can you, that understanding that that's the river that we're dumping into, but if the river is contaminated with all of these things, and most of them I don't know what are, is there a system or actively to kind of trace this back and figure out where this, fecal matter, that to me tells me that there's a septic system that's draining into the river. So can't you chase that back and find out why?
Yeah, I think the idea behind the Impaired Waters program is to try to identify, which of those particular contaminants might be attributable to the roadway.
Yeah, but it's limited to the roadway in this discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's basically under Mass DOT's purview, to basically try to help an impaired situation.
Okay.
So the list that we have in there is, all the impairments that have been identified, through previous field testing, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Beyond
so
the scope.
A lot of it's not
Yeah,
as a result of the roadway. But, they're basically trying to, help that wherever possible.
thank you.
You people do know where you're doing this work in regard to the overall site, what's underground?
Yep.
You do realize there's a
There's
huge,
a very large pipe.
yes,
Yep.
we've been through a fracture of that pipe before. Right, John?
Yes.
That's in.
Losing about 1 million gallons.
You're talking about the utility?
Yeah, the MWRA.
MDRA.
That's
MWRA line is, I think they go through this area, so I think there's a line kind of goes like this.
Your new pipe goes right over it.
Yeah, but there's a 48-inch pipe. Nothing in this area. When we survey, we normally,
Yeah, they're definitely
Check
aware of
over the
that, so I know
utilities.
they're tweaking the design with that and working
Pardon
with MWRA. No, we're definitely aware of that.
And we're
So,
aware of that.
Do you have permission permission from the MWRA to work on top of it?
I believe so. There's a certain amount of clearance, I think, that we need to
Can
meet,
you
so.
provide us with that MWRA letter of certification?
Sure, I can ask about that. I'm just gonna jot that. Okay.
All right, so we've got a wetlands delineation. I think you'd like some plant life description as to what you're gonna plant.
If there's any articles or reports that people have written about the destruction of chemicals through the absorption by plants, any information like that that you could send?
Yeah,
would-
we'll do some research about it.
Just so we can understand
Yeah.
better how that system works and what kinds of plants should be involved.
Right, but this.
Understanding that
yeah,
that's not.
This one does not involve that.
This does not involve
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
I
we're gonna.
I understand that.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay, good.
Now, is this tied into the new office building that's going in that cloverleaf?
No. This is,
Familiar with that?
I'm sorry?
You're familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with that, the building that you're talking about. I don't know where it is, but I do know that this is not related to any of the new projects or anything going on in this area.
Right
This-
where the salt storage sits.
The salt storage is about right here. This is a DOT depot. They have a salt shed right here, about approximately right here.
So if you don't consider tying those in two projects together?
No, the project, when this project was commissioned, it was really to help, like Tom pointed out, the impaired water program. DOT's roadway services is, contributing, stormwater to contribute to that impairment. So they're trying to do anything they can to kind of alleviate that negative impact. So it's not related to any new buildings or any new projects that they're building.
How about the catch basins on the expressway? Can we do anything with the catch basins to filter out some of the oil?
Where on the expressway can
Well,
you?
you said that the drainage for this project,
The contributing drainage project is about from here to approximately here. That kind of drains this way
But-
into the river.
the first flush comes from the surface of the roadway.
Right.
Is there anything, and that surface water is collected, it goes into a catch basin, a piping system?
Right.
That reaches here? Are we doing anything to, up at the catch basins to put in any filtering systems there?
In the catch
In the
basins?
roadway,
No,
yeah.
we're not doing those. We're not doing those. I know, I'm aware of there's some technologies within the catch basins that provide some kind of a treatment. There's like, some of them are like preparatory, specially designed catch basin that by themselves, they provide some treatment and filtering. Is this what you?
Right.
Okay. No, we're not
Oil
doing some of them.
filters?
Yeah. They're,
So
go ahead.
you're just letting everything flush down till it hits your spot, hits your new basin,
Right.
okay? So you're not doing anything up at where the water originates, the drainage originates at the expressway on the roadway. And all that contaminated water goes into the catch basin and then down to where you're gonna have your new retention basins.
Right.
You're not doing anything, best management practice worldwide are not to do anything at the source of the origination of the water? You're saying that's best management practice?
They are EMPs to modify those existing catch basins, and provided, I think, there's a lot of considerations here. So if you, for example, there are catch basins here and here and here. If you want to modify those catch basins, obviously, you run, a lot of inconvenience, to disrupt the traffic. Because right now, the drainage systems, if I understand you, sir, correctly, the drainage systems, including the catch basins and also those pipes underneath the highway,
Right.
they're already laid out there. And to actually modify a lot of them will involve a lot of roadway work, disruption of traffic, and stuff like that. So what we are trying to do is really trying to minimize those impacts and trying to divert the first flush to treat it. That's
I mean, do you have a long-term maintenance protocol that says when I repave the street and I regrind it down, that I'm gonna put filter fabrics, okay, to cap some of that particular matter from the grinding before they resurface it, before it gets into the pipe?
I mean,
You follow me?
yeah, that should normally be done by
that type of work, so, protection of any type of catch basins. But that would be a roadway activity. I mean, like I'm saying, this particular project is related to the capture of the stormwater. So, that should be a standard roadway type of protocols to protect catch basins while they're doing that. But I see what you're saying, but the idea, like Jan was saying, was to basically collect that water, divert it to the BMP, because I don't know if you saw it here, it's a lot easier to go in and maintain the BMP than to try to keep taking care of the catch basins along the roadway. So part of this design includes a 14-foot wide gravel access little roadway through here, as well as a turnaround to be able to access this, a lot easier without disrupting traffic. So this is more like a, concentration point, a collection point, rather than have to deal with, the I-93 traffic every time you want to, try to maintain, those individual catch basins.
Okay, so we don't kick the can down the road here. We've got a plan. We need three things: the wetlands delineation we have to check on. We can't do it with the snow, so that's going to entail some time. We don't want to interfere with your construction schedule because we think it's a good idea. But it might be better if we had the information on the plant life. That's number two. Number three is the MWRA permission. Given that, our next meeting is when, Kathy?
The 10th of March.
How does that, we won't be able to inspect it on the 10th of March, so we want to inspect it sometime before then. There's a lot of snow out there, and I'm not sure if the flags will be visible for a month or so. If we were to continue it until the 10th, that would give you time to give us the MWRA certification, the plant capabilities in terms of breaking down the chemicals. And then we could set a date at that time. And we usually do it, we can do it like the next Saturday, the 17th of,
14th March.
the 14th would be the, okay. Is that acceptable to you in terms of your scheduling?
Yeah, what we could do is we could contact our DOT contact and just find out what that schedule is and see how that works.
All right.
We should be able to get back to you
All right.
even later this week. So
That's good, if you get back in touch with Kathy. We're trying to facilitate this
exactly.
project, I think it's a
Yep,
good idea.
Would definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we go on, are there any abutters, members of the public, citizens that'd like to make a comment or ask a question? Any other comments from the
I
commission?
you were dealing with site C. What about site D and E? Are they?
Yeah, those are outside of our jurisdiction
Okay,
under the Wetlands
but
Protection
just
Act.
out of information, so you're doing another basin there as well in both of those locations?
Let's see. Yep, D is
D is also an infiltration basin. In this case, it's primary mechanism will be involved with infiltration as well. I think we have a joint. Yeah, this is going to change a little bit, in part because there's the existing MWRA line, so we have to clear that. I think investigation showed that we do have the vertical clearance to do it. This area will have to, this is going to change a little bit, but nonetheless, this is outside the jurisdiction area, so that's basin D.
But it's the same strategy, just a larger capacity.
Right, but in this case, I think the proposed idea would be there will be some kind of an under-drain system to collect the leachate from, the reason is being the soil underneath, and they're not as infiltratable based on the geotechnical investigation. That's why we introduced the under-drain.
Yep.
All right. So do we have a drawing for this is A. Is A in the no?
Boston.
E.
No,
A is
that's
Boston.
Okay,
so
yeah,
D-
sorry.
it would be
Yep, so be
E.
E,
Okay.
yeah.
E here, as you know, this is the depot, and these two are existing ponds for the depot, if you're familiar with it. So we're really not doing much over here. We found out that part of the runoff from the highway kind of goes somehow mysteriously into the pond, which in my opinion they probably shouldn't, because these ponds are supposed to be responsible for the development right here. But they come in here nonetheless, and then where they come in is very, very close to the outfall. So what we're doing is trying to, now that it's already coming in, we try to kind of, and also the outfall is in a pretty bad shape. So we're trying to, this is really not a full removal mechanism as this one and this one. This is just trying to clean up the outfall and make sure if it comes in, let it come in and have a little bit sediment time and then leave. So it's gonna, this is more, in my opinion, like a maintenance project to kind of clean up the outfall thing.
Redirect the inflow.
Right, we're
clean
not
up
gonna
the-
make this pond bigger or smaller because they're designed for their purposes. So,
Well, the original purpose.
the
not
original
current
purposes, exactly, exactly. We can't do much about it. So,
Okay, if you can get us that material in advance of the March 10th meeting, that would be very helpful to us, and we'll schedule a site walk very soon thereafter, probably the 14th.
I'd just like to reinforce the point that was made earlier about having the estimated work schedule with start and completion dates. That would help.
Right.
Okay,
That's good.
that's
So can we
DOT.
make that number
Yep.
4?
Yeah, we'll definitely can get back to you guys soon on that.
But I agree, this is the type of work we'd like to see being done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're done. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sure.
Next on the agenda is 0 Central Avenue, that's the town of Milton. Clark, have you made a request to the commission?
I did send over a letter earlier today requesting a continuance until March 10th.
Any questions, concerns about the continuance?
Yes. How long is this and Mr. Connolly's project gonna be continued?
Is that,
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
is that a
How
question?
long
for me
is
or-
this project and Mr. Connolly's project gonna continue? Because it doesn't look as though Mr. Connolly's here tonight.
I know he's busy with snow removal on several of his projects, so I know he sent over a request to continue until March also.
Ooh, the Henry's building has a flat roof, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
it does. There is already a collapse in the middle, and yes, it's a concern.
I think they'll hear a degree of increasing frustration with continuations of continuances. So anything that can be done to terminate the ongoing continuances and get business at hand would really be great. And I know there are circumstances like the ones we have right now. that
This
are
one's a little
understandable.
bit over the top, but yes, we have been working on it. I know that, I know the chairman of the Board of Selectmen has been meeting, trying to, bring this thing to a head and, finish it.
We're of like mind.
I'm sorry?
We are of like mind, at least
Yes.
I will say.
And
I am.
I agree.
Indeed.
going back to the building itself, we do have the police department, the fire department, and the building inspector watching the building very carefully to make sure that there's nothing, again, nothing's going to happen to the public because of the building itself.
So my recollection is that the largest, or the issue revolving around the demolition is the water testing of the wells. Is there another significant issue beyond the water testing of the wells?
Yes, there is.
What was that?
Where does the drainage go? Because our
Oh, because
latest information is that they didn't go where
Right.
they thought they did.
And we were supposed to
Right.
see a plan. There's supposed to be a plan coming to us showing the drainage pattern.
Okay, can we make a statement here saying that it's our expectation to be able to resolve the issue on March, during the March meeting?
It's fine with me.
I mean, we should be able to make that, right?
Well, are you mixing the town
Thank
with
you.
131? This is 0 Central Avenue, which is different than 131. And the problem
Well,
is that
131, you're right. I'm
each
sorry.
one is getting, each side would claim that the other side is bogging them down. It's clear that it's been bogged down. But I think the drainage issue
It's 131.
is 131.
That's correct.
And as is the well testing.
You are correct.
Then what's the issue for the town?
I don't know.
What's the issue for the town?
Ours has to do with the method of taking the building down. if the original RFP said we were coming in from the side. Coming in from the side is going on Mr. Conley's land to take our building down.
Right.
The issue there is potentially an environmental one of what's underneath there.
Tanks, whatever.
We're not looking to make anything happen in that area on those tanks. In order to come in from the street, it's a different method of demolition, and it isn't exactly the way we plan to take it down, so therefore there are other factors involved, primarily money.
And you'd have to rebid it, would you not?
We would. We believe we would, because it's not what was in the original RFP.
It's beyond the date, isn't it? Awarding date?
Bless you.
Bless you.
You have so many days that you have to review the contract?
Right now, we're fine with the contract because of the selectmen did extend they did extend the contract date at the last selectmen's meeting, I think it was last Wednesday. They did extend it, and it still goes back to, there's negotiations going on to get to fruition.
Okay. Any
Can
other-
yeah, before we leave this, and I'd like to send a message back to the selectmen. I am very concerned about what's underground. And I think we need a licensed site professional, an LSP, to tell us exactly what's underground, even though some of the oil may not be under the town's property, but that the town is working adjacent to the building foundation. And the RISA report says that Conley's building foundation holds all the oil contaminants in place. And I'm concerned about the town working next to that building foundation, that if they disturb that, where is the oil gonna go? And
Oh, I'm sorry. You good?
I also think that we need to face the problem is the DEP granted approval for the Conley building as a manufacturing site, and now we're turning it into a housing site.
That's a different issue. We're talking about demolition.
No, it's all related.
But we're talking about demolition, and I'd like to try to keep them separate.
Right, and it's also a different notice of intent. So there are two separations. This is central, this is Zero Central, which is the town, and you're talking about 131. And I know they're interrelated, because you're right, if the foundation is somehow disturbed, you'd be correct, but the issue is that the town we've got an aerial building, this is up. So I'm not sure how that could,
Well, I don't know how far down the town wants
I
to
can answer
go.
both your questions. Right now, the footings that are down there are going to be taken out. When we take out those footings, what's in the ground is going to be made known. That comes into Craig's piece about what would the LSP see when we take those things out. We know that, and we want to make sure we have a clean site too. Having an LSP inspect the site, either as or right after we take that building down, is not a problem.
Mr. Conley was saying that their plan for the demolition was only superstructure, no ground level work or below.
It's not
That's
what
what he-
it's changed.
That's what he was saying. He was saying that they weren't removing anything below, they weren't removing the tanks, they weren't removing the foundations, they were working up. And you're saying now that the town is planning on removing foundations as well.
Our part of the building has always been to take out
Everything.
everything that we own.
Including the footings, right, on,
The Conley portion of the building was to take down just the building,
the
and
superstructure.
it was supposed to have been taken down back in the fall, so it would have been taken down fall, early winter.
Yep.
So that their construction season would have been take out the rest of it. How timing is going to work now, I don't know,
Right.
but they eventually have to take those pieces out.
Right.
We know that. Our part was to take out what we own so that we had down to virgin ground.
Agreed. Yeah.
Is there any discussion about, we're clearly going to have to ask for an LSP.
Yes,
Have you had any discussions with the Conleys about sharing an LSP?
no, not at this point.
All right. All right, I mean, it's hard to talk about one without talking about
The other.
the other one, and that's true. And it's also difficult to talk about the demolition part without the project part included.
I disagree.
But we still have
Well,
notice of an,
It may be, because the demolition plan has changed.
But I don't think the demolition is tied to the proposed work. The demolition work is, as long as we can evaluate, determine and set the line of what the level of demolition is it to the ground, or is it everything within the ground?
Oh, I agree with that. I
As
agree
soon
with
as
that.
if we're into the ground, then there's a whole nother level of information that needs to go, but that's not what they had proposed to date.
No, initially, the demolition plan, the first one,
Yep.
had a detention pond right on top of the tanks. They
Correct.
removed that.
But they were
That's
talking
the
about
change
leaving the
that-
foundations in place, therefore they were only bringing down the superstructure, they weren't doing any
Oh,
foundation.
I agree with that.
131.
At 131,
131,
not,
right.
right.
But I'm
So-
hung up on the tanks, because the detention pond, which is clearly needed
Yes,
to protect the site, just on demolition.
Yes.
I'm not talking about whatever the development is. I'm talking about the different, phases of demolition. Because at one time, it was going to be done all at once, and then there were two components. There was a demo, and then there was a site development,
Yes.
and then there was a project.
which I think is an improvement.
It depends if they're going into the ground.
Correct, but they're not currently proposing that. And when we talked about it and talked about the detention pond, they agreed to line the pond because they couldn't,
That's the
Provide-
that's the second pond, Mike.
what do you mean?
First pond disappeared off the plans, and it got pushed
Oh, I'm
into
talking
the
about
site
where we are
development.
now.
Okay, okay.
They're
but-
we asked them about the pond, and they said that they would line it because they couldn't,
stabilize.
whatever, they couldn't provide information to show that it wasn't going to, there was gonna be adequate containment without some kind of a liner. We asked for the liner, they said they could do the liner, there would not be an issue for them to do the liner. That's where I understand we are now. So the question for me is, we've asked them to do the testing on those wells that are currently in place. Because they're there, it's not a matter of drilling, it's a matter of just bringing someone in to do the testing. That's the thing that we want to have done. And there's no reason, from my perspective, not to do that now, right? Because then we know what's in the
These
ground.
are all
whether
good
it-
points,
bigger
but
things.
it's the next agenda item.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but it is all linked. But
You're making me nervous.
We know that there's oil down the bottom of the wells. I have no idea why we don't issue an enforcement order and tell them to take the tanks out right now.
I
Right
think the
there,
first step
it-
is the testing,
Test what?
the wells.
Why? Rizzo's already testing.
That was,
Get oil in the
that was
water.
now 18 years ago.
I think with the test is the first easy step, to say yes or no. And understanding that's not what we're talking about now, that's the next step.
You dug you put in the 6 or 7 wells. You already know in the Rizzo report that there's oil at the bottom of the well. What else do you want?
Well, there was. 1997.
1997, there was. Everybody agrees to that, right?
All right, well, let's take it one step at a time, because that really is 131, not 0
Right.
Central Avenue. So the question is, Milton has asked for a continuance. We've taken it under consideration, discussed it. Are there any comments from the public or abutters, interested parties that have any thoughts on this? If not, we can continue the discussion, but I think most of our discussion focuses on the next agenda item, which we're going to have to consider a request for a continuance on that one as well. But as far as the town of Milton goes, I see no reason to
Right.
not agree to a continuance.
If we can set,
Agreed.
If we what?
if we can set parameters of what's gonna happen on March 10th.
I don't think that they know. I don't know how we can, predict the future. A lot of this has to do with negotiating going on between the town and the Conleys.
Yeah, that's why we merely asked to have a message conveyed that we're anxious to move forward.
Oh, sure, I mean,
We can't do much beyond that.
I agree. It is certainly our considered opinion and consensus of the commission that we want to facilitate and expedite this whole process. It's a public safety hazard, and everybody should be working cooperatively towards getting it down safely.
You've made the point, and I know that there's two of the selectmen watching it on TV. I will deliver the same message back to all three tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, so we're all in agreement? Continuance?
Yes.
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 Bless you, son. Thank you very much.
You want to stay for 131?
Next, number 3 on the agenda is notice of intent, 131 Elliott Street. This is the demolition. So it's not the project, it's just a demolition notice of intent. And I received, as did Kathy, an email from Steve Conley saying, Kathy, to follow up on our phone conversation today, I cannot attend tonight's meeting. I am working, parentheses, snow plowing and removal, close parentheses. I also have employees working tonight. We will be at the March 2015 meeting for the 40B notice of intent, and we can address a demo notice of intent at that time. Please thank the board for its consideration regarding this matter. And I had conveyed through others to Mr. Conley that because at the last meeting he had asked for continuance and I had granted that as an administrative matter, we then had a discussion and thought that any further any continuance should be discussed in public session. So that's what we're here to do, to consider this request. It's still on the agenda, but we have an applicant that's requesting a continuance. So that's open for discussion. And some comments have already been made.
Well, we've
about
already
what we
made,
do.
yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I guess what's before us is that before we continue, because once we continue it, it's off the agenda. And the public meeting law suggests that we can't go backwards and talk about it. So we need to talk about it now. Should we ask for, under the enforcement order authority, a test of those wells? It's not expensive, it's not time consuming, it's a simple task. It would give us more data, we need data.
Why don't just ask, as part of the enforcement order, removal of the tanks?
Let's take the first step, let's take
do
the
the
first
first
step
step.
first. Because I'm sure that Mr. Conley would want to be here. You know, removing the tanks is costly, it's time consuming, it creates other issues. I'm sure he'd want to be here to be heard. And he's told us he can't be here.
But how
But
many
the,
times has he told us, okay, I mean, he's had other opportunities.
I agree with you. I did.
But
and you-
aside from that, we need the data. We need to know now what's in those tanks, not 10 years ago, not 18 years ago, but now. So I think we should hire someone and
Well, that's something else. One is the enforcement order would be to suggest or to order that the test be done. A second one would be to hire a consultant to assist us. I'm not sure at this point what we need, whether it's a hydrologist. We don't know where the water is going, number one. What we thought we
well,
had
it's a
by way
second
of
issue,
data.
right, yeah.
Right, but that's, I'm going to Judith's question about whether or not we need a consultant. I don't know what kind of a consultant. And that may be something, again, that Mr. Conley would want to address. But the first step is easy. It's not costly, it's not cumbersome. It's just test the water, or whatever's at the bottom of the monitoring well. I mean, so, does anybody think that's a good idea or a bad idea, or want to do something
I
different?
don't know what really, is- I mean, given the amount of surface water around today, I don't know what that's gonna approve. We already know what's down there, what was down there.
Well, I'm not afraid to ask. I mean, everybody's tiptoeing around it. There are 6 monitoring wells. Nobody wants to test them.
test them, yeah.
It's easy.
It would seem that has to be done either as part of the demolition or part of the construction. And if this commission needs to have that information to do the best work that it can under the bylaws of the town, then why not ask for the wells to be tested as part of the demolition?
But wouldn't it be better for us
No,
to hire someone?
No, now,
Yeah,
I would
right
say
now.
prior to the next meeting.
Yes.
I don't want to tie that to the demolition. I want to know that information prior to our
Separate
approval of the
information.
demolition to proceed. Why would we wait?
I see the point.
point.
And can't we hire our own person? Wouldn't that be better? You know, so we have an independent directly?
Well,
Do we need Conley's permission to go onto the land to test the well?
well, that's why we need an enforcement order. Right. If he stopped us, that would be, that would not advance his cause, I don't think. But certainly, we'd have to reach out to him and issue an enforcement order to have him test it. The problem with us hiring a consultant is, I still don't know what kind of a consultant we need yet. We're going to need an LSP. We're going to need somebody that's a hydrologist to tell us where that water is going. And I don't know if we need a toxicologist, but I don't want to start running around having too many. If we ordered him to go to a certified lab that's recognized by DEP, and there are lots of them around, so.
Would it make sense to ask for two things then if we're going to ask for the testing of the wells before demolition? The second thing being the drainage.
Oh,
Well, that's
right,
But-
but we've asked for that a
But
lot.
couldn't,
Well, I'd combine the two of them.
Sure.
couldn't the town engineer or someone give us advice as to what sort of licensed professional would be doing this sort of testing?
Sure.
Yeah,
Right.
so then we could, again, hire our own person to do that.
But the town engineer has already told us that the original contention, that the drainage, the sumps inside the factory were connected to the town's drainage system, proved to be inaccurate.
Yeah,
Because they did run a television scope down there,
Right.
and it does not go
Doesn't
into
go.
town. We don't know where it goes.
Right.
We think it discharges into the deposit directly, but we don't know how it gets there. And we certainly need to know if there is contaminated water running off the demolition site, not project, but demolition. We need to know where it's
Right,
going.
in an uncontrolled way.
Correct.
Yeah.
It seems we were supposed to have that information by now.
Correct. I'm just a little uncomfortable because we talked about it with Mr. Conley before, and he's not here
Understood.
to respond. I'm trying to find the path
but
of
he
least
knows we're
resistance.
concerned. I mean,
Oh, sure he does.
this is the topic. I think we should,
My concern about hiring another professional at this time is just delaying the process. Doing that requires, I mean, I'm not opposed to the information coming through Connolly from a licensed source, certified source. I'm more worried about the delay in the process because getting a licensed professional means that we need to go out, clearly define what that person's scope is, which we don't know at this time, and put it out to a bid for 3 different people to get that back to get approval before they can do anything. So there's a whole cycle there that I don't think is worth, it doesn't
Right.
gain us enough for what
Okay.
it requires. And that's 100% of my concern, it's just delay in time, more delay in time.
yeah.
You know?
I concur, and I also would like to have the information that we're talking about in advance of making such a hiring. Because, going to John's point, we have to know who to hire, what levels of expertise and types of expertise.
And define a scope.
That's exactly right.
Well, couldn't we start with just hiring an LSP to just, okay? Just
Oversee
back
it.
up. Wait a minute, back up for a minute, to find out the status of the DEP's determination on the site. And then we could have that LSP review what we have today to determine what other consultants we need.
I think eventually we will need an LSP. But you
saying-
heard the difficulty because we just talked to Mr. Clark on the town's demolition
Right.
project. And, you know, there's a concept out there of perhaps they can share an LSP in some proportion, given the size of the different sites. And I think we're getting the cart before the horse to ask for an LSP now. They need to get together. The town and the commons.
I agree.
And somehow, in some fashion, that will happen. I just hope it happens sooner rather than later. So I go back to the testing of the wells is the first step. The definition of the scope of a consultant or several consultants and an LSP also, and it could be the same person. We could get an LSP that has a background and expertise to advise us in that area. It could be one individual. I mean, we're trying to make it as cost-effective as possible for for both applicants.
And timely.
Right, move it along, yeah.
So, yes, I agree. The issue of tracking the water path, should we do research and determine who would do, I mean, between talking to the town engineers or talking to other site civil engineers to find out what kind of a firm and who would typically do that work, to pull the trigger on that as well? Because I don't think we're ready to pull, I mean, it's one thing to test the wells, because there's a lot of people can do that. I think tracking those pipes is a more specific task.
Right.
So it might take some legwork on our part, just to get it to
Wouldn't they
go.
do some sort of a dye exam, put dye in one end and see if it comes out?
That's the way to do it.
They started that, Kathy, didn't they? Wasn't that one of the first things that they did?
I believe it was.
Bill, do you know more about what the dye test was by our town engineer?
Yes. They actually cameraed the whole system out there. But I was getting back to, I think it's Michael's question on who's going to do that testing. I'd suggest that you ask an LSP to come in and do the testing for you. Their firm would then,
Bring in the right people.
yes,
Right.
they would guarantee that it has a QA/QC for where the water went, how it's being tested, and what it's being tested for. What you're asking is for testing based on a previous report that was already done once before. So whether it's Rizzo that comes back or whether it's Green, we use Green Environmental to do our testing. We've had an LSP already come out to our site. I don't know that the Conleys ever have. I'll ask. I don't know if they've ever had an LSP look at the site. I know that Rizzo did it.